Hey, welcome back to Daily Hope. I want to transport you back to Luke chapter 2 when Mary and Joseph are in Bethlehem and Mary starts to go into labor. And here's what happens. Now, we tend to think of Mary and Joseph as being alone, but I was thinking about this. If Joseph had to travel from Nazareth to Bethlehem because he was from the line of David, probably a lot of Joseph's brothers, cousins, uncles, and extended family were also in Bethlehem at this time. Might have been a little bit of a family reunion. But Mary's family would not have been there. She wasn't from the tribe of David. So Mary's going into birth. Her mom's not there. Her biological sisters aren't there. She probably has some in-law sisters, mother-in-law types who are around, and they're going to say to the innkeeper and everyone else, where do we take her? Well, you've heard the story. They end up in the stable where the animals are kept. Now, in modern interpretations of this, it's usually a wooden stable. Why? Because most of our houses are wooden and we assume that's what they built with. But they built primarily with stone in the ancient world, and they primarily, because it was such a rocky place, would build into cliffs. Now, they would then sometimes use wood coming out from the cliff, but most stables where the animals stayed were caves in the cliffside, and so most likely this stable where Jesus was born was a cave carved out of, or maybe even natural to begin with, the side of a cliff. There's a cave. The manger itself most likely was also rock that was carved into that. And this stable isn't like in the nativity scenes you tend to see like, well, there's a cow and there's a camel and there's like, it's probably mostly donkeys because that's what most people would have used for transportation to get to Bethlehem. And remember, Bethlehem is crowded right now with people who've all come for this census. So as Mary's giving birth, she's in a cave most likely. She's surrounded most likely by donkeys. There will also be in the cave some sacrificial animals, lambs and doves. Doves were what the poor people would sacrifice if they couldn't afford a lamb. Why? Well, Bethlehem's really close to Jerusalem. So any good Jewish person, if they're going to go to Bethlehem and be right by Jerusalem, then on the way there or back, they're going to stop in at the temple and they're going to make an animal sacrifice. So Mary is most likely surrounded by primarily donkeys, firstborn lambs that are on their way to Jerusalem, doves in cages, and then these women, either from the village there, hopefully some of them are at least extended family relatives. She gives birth to the Messiah. And then you might recall from Luke chapter 2, the shepherds are out in the fields and they hear from these angels and the shepherds rush in. So that's where we get our typical nativity scene. Probably the wise men are not there yet, just the shepherds. I have a purpose for all this, okay? Animals. There's a bunch of animals surrounding the Messiah. I want you to have that in mind. Smell the straw, hear the sounds of these animals stomping their little hooves and, doing what animals do. Listen to this about the Messiah in Isaiah 11, verse 6. In that day, the wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. The calf and the yearling will be safe with the lion, and a little child will lead them all. Now, I don't know what the average scholar would say on this. I don't think most would say this is specifically saying that Jesus is the child with those animals. But that's something that occurred to me this week as I was reading back over this and studying that stable with the animals. I just thought, if nothing else, it's a bit of poetic foreshadowing. A child will lead all these animals. But what's the real point of Isaiah 11, verse 6? The point is that the carnivore animals are no longer killing the vegetarian animals, herbivores, I guess they're called. In fact, later it will say that the cow will graze near the bear. So the bear's going to, all the carnivores are going to be there when there's a new heaven and a new earth. We'll still have all the animals, but none of them are going to be killing each other. So I just thought it was so interesting, that line, a little child will lead them all. Could that have been a bit of divine foreshadowing. I don't know for sure. But what I do know for sure is that in the kingdom of God, there will be no more death, there will be no more suffering. And that little child in that manger led the way to that kingdom for all of us. Let's live in gratitude of that today. Let's set our eyes on that future reality where there will be no more sickness, no more pain, no more killing or death. What a day that will be when Christ returns. Merry Christmas season to you. I'll see you tomorrow for more Daily Hope.